All right, beautiful humans. Welcome back to another episode of Naked Sunday. I'm your host, Caleb Nelson. My energy right now is like maxed out to like 112 because I have the beautiful, the fantastic, the wildly positive Kelly Lynn Adams on the show today. Thank you, my dear, for joining me and sharing your time and your happiness and your smile.
Oh, Caleb, I'm so happy to be here. I'm so excited, actually. Really excited.
I was pretty amped to be like, this is how I'm starting my Monday to record this podcast with you. I'm like, sign me up again. Let's do this twice. I like to start off all my episodes. I don't know if you listen to any of my episodes, but like I start off all my episodes with why I appreciate my guest. And I was just telling you this before I even pushed record. I don't know why you're in my life, but I'm at a place in my world, in my existence on this journey through time and space where I just like people come into my life for a reason. And we've had one other conversation. You have this vibrancy, you have this energy, you have this positivity that just like it's pouring through the screen right now. I hope people are watching the video because they're going to see this beaming smile. It gets me energized. It cycles up my happiness. And I just want more people with that kind of energy in my life. So thank you for being that to me in just the brief time we've known each other. And yeah, that's why I'm grateful for you.
Oh my gosh, Caleb, I receive everything. I'm practicing my receiving muscle and I receive. And yes, I mean, this has been, I feel like I've known you for years, like really, honestly. And we've had like one or two conversations and I'm like, okay, wait, are we like, so like we've known each other in a different realm, 100%. Like
for
that's
sure.
hard.
For sure. Descended from the heavens. We're here. We're crushing it. It's, you're fantastic. And we were just talking before about like receiving. And I like, this is a recent revelation. And just to share this moment of like, so many people and I'm saying this personally, so I'm putting myself on the chopping block, being vulnerable. Like I feel guilty receiving. And I think a lot of coaches do. And you had brought it up before, like helping, because I know you work with a lot of women, helping women receive like abundance and happiness and fulfillment in their life. And it's this unsung thing. It's why we're so wrapped up in this guilt thing around that. It's strange. Like, where are you seeing this like in life?
Yeah, it's everywhere. And full transparency and honesty and vulnerability. I am also working on my receiving muscle because there has been times where I have suppressed my receiving or no, like I'm an overgiver. I'm like Mother Teresa. And it's like, wait, what? I need to receive. And it's for years. I mean, I just have not been receiving, and I get to work on that. And I have been working on that for the past 2 years, I would say. And I'm even coming up from like an upper limit now, being like, okay, Kelly, how much can you receive? How good can you stand it? And I always say this, we all have a relationship with money, good, bad, and different, whatever it is. We all have a relationship with money and we all have a relationship with receiving. Like how much can we receive? A compliment. I know a lot of the women that I work with, they're badasses. They're so successful. They're like grinding and it's like, well, how much can you receive a compliment? Can you receive love? How much love can you receive? How much money can you receive? So there's always that relationship with receiving. I think everyone has some sort of relationship with it.
Yeah. And I'd be curious to hear your take on this. I had a friend yesterday, we've been sharing this conversation a lot. And I think it is a lot about, you brought up upper limit. When success starts to come into people's life, he shared it. I think he heard it from somebody else. Somebody called it altitude sickness. And I was like, ding, ding, ding. That hit so well. Because we're so programmed as a society, I think, that's like to have things or to whatever is not okay. And then all of a sudden, a lot of people come into that because they've been so good at giving their time and being of service to others that they climb, and all of a sudden they have resources. And I hope most people understand, like, this is not all about making tons of money, because money is not going to solve all your problems. It will solve problems to a certain point. But once people come into this abundance, I'm saying to so many people, like, and again, this is me, like any time I've come into my life, I've self-sabotaged big time. Like my bank account will jump to a certain point, and then all of a sudden, like, what's happening here? Unbeknownst to me, all of a sudden I just like kick the chair out from underneath myself and be like, back to square one to climb all over it. I'd love to hear your take on that, because that when I heard that, it's like, oh, that's such like a physical thing. And thinking about how many people are thinking like, I'm trying to climb this mountain all the time, and I'm here freaking out, man. I'm freaking out.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the same thing of like the thermometer thing. Like
Mm.
the thermometer, it's like set at a certain temperature. And like it, if it goes above or beyond or below, like it kicks in. That's our like natural, like, oh, nope. And I'll share with you now, like I have a cold and I'm hitting my upper limits. Like, how good can I receive as I cough?
This is real
But
time.
it's like my body, it's like, oh wow, like things have been going so well. And it's like, am I like it comes with a worthiness, conversation of like, how worthy are you? Like you're worthy just because. For me, it's like that worthiness of like, okay, excuse me, how good can I stand it? So this is all going on for a reason, obviously. So, and it's like I've been receiving so much good lately, and it's like, oh, my thermometer, right? It's like, okay, the heat kicks in at 69 degrees if it's too cold, but it's like we get to expand that. And sometimes it does look like falling down on our faces, to expand the capacity. I'll share a story with you that my coach, Preston Smiles, had me do and practice on receiving.
What a fire
And
name, by the way. That is, I love
yeah,
it for twofold. My youngest brother's name is Preston, and Smiles as a last name is awesome as a
yeah,
coach. Awesome.
yeah. He kicks my butt in such a loving way. So he wanted me to practice on receiving. So one of the exercises that I got to do was I got to really ask for what I needed from a stranger. And it had to be, I think it had to be like $10 or more. I had to go ask for something. So I was like, what am I going to go ask for? Am I going to go to Starbucks and ask for a coffee? Am I going to? So I was like, you know what? And it had to be a stranger, and it had to be something that you really wanted. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to Whole Foods. And I want, I want flowers. I want flowers. And then I went to the flower section and I'm like, no, I saw this money tree. I was like, I want the money tree, And it was about, I think it was like $11.67. And so I'm holding this money tree and I'm like, I have to ask a stranger to buy this for me. And my whole body was like, I don't want to be doing this right now. Right. So it's like, why am I doing this? All these thoughts. And then I'm literally walking with the tree around Whole Foods for an hour. Being like, oh, I can't ask the mom with the newborn. She doesn't have money to buy this. And I'm like, these are the thoughts that are running in my head. How true is that? Right. I can't ask the older couple who is older because, oh, they like, maybe they don't have money. Kelly. Oh, I can't. So then I'm like, okay, this is my own biases and my own judgment on people. So this exercise I learned so much about myself. So there was a guy, he's like 35 years old and, nice shoes, nice watch. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to flirt, right? Cause I'm going to depend on what I have, right? I'm going to flirt. He's young. Of course he's going to buy me this $11 money tree, $11.67 money tree. So I'm literally shaking. I stand behind a self-checkout and I asked him, like, excuse me, I'm doing this experiment around receiving. He's like, okay. And I'm like, I was wondering if you can buy me this plant, this tree. And he's like, you want me to buy you that plant? I said, yeah. He's like, oh no, I can't. My credit cards are maxed out. And I'm like, oh. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, I was like, okay. And so then people are looking at me and I just shut down. I shut down and he's like, have a good day. And he walked out and, someone asked me, why didn't you ask the person behind you or the people diagonal to you, the people, in front of you? I was like, I just shut down. I got rejected. So that form of rejection just shut me down and my receiving went like boom. And I paid for the plant myself and I walked the hell out of Whole Foods. And I never went to that Whole Foods ever again.
Shame, shame.
So now with someone, right, with a maybe a larger receiving, right, or like rejection, because receiving is anything, right? Like if you get rejected, how much can you receive being rejected, right? So someone with a larger capacity at that time would have been like, no, I would have asked the person in back of me or the person on the side of me. I just completely shut down. And then I made it about, so this is the conversation internally I had about myself. Oh, I'm not worthy. Why did I get rejected? And so this is like everything about, even when you're in business with for yourself, when you get a no on a client you really, really want, how do you proceed? Like, how do you, right? And I've gotten rejected tons of times in relationships, in business, and for some reason that hit differently. So receiving as such, it has so many different layers to it, around the good enoughness, around the worthiness, around, right? And it's like, we're never done, but we're always perfect, whole, and complete, like my coach Preston says. So it's just interesting, of how many layers. So I would really invite everyone to be like, okay, look at what is your relationship with receiving, and how good can you, take it and stand it, and bump it up a little bit. And it's not going to happen overnight. I think it's a muscle that we get to just strengthen.
I think today's title is going to be How Well Do You Receive? I think there's so much around that. It's just really powerful. I appreciate you sharing that, because I mean, just see like your body language is sharing the story. Like, so I was there, and I was like watching you relive this in your body. I don't know how your body felt like, just like going through that pipeline again of like reimagining that, and just like, how are you feeling right now with it?
Yeah, I'm like, oh, right, it contracted, but then it's like, oh, I get to do it right again and
Yeah.
again and again. So it's, and that's the thing. It's like we contract, but then it's like, oh, if I got to do it again, it wouldn't be so bad, right? Because I've already experienced, kind of like a rubber band, right? So it's pushing and pulling, but at the same time, like, oh, I could do that. Like right now I could go to Starbucks and do the same thing, right? And not be as nervous. Now, there's another degree, like if I had to ask for $50 of something, yeah, like I would probably feel like that same contractedness that I did, when I was asking for the $11 or $10 thing.
Well, that just came to mind. I'll bring an example from the fitness industry that I think not enough people consider. It's this, a lot of people like max effort, train super hard.
Yeah.
But you brought about like, now I snap back. And I think not enough people understand recovery time. And by getting, well, which I thought was a powerful, okay, so we talked about, you said it was 1160 or something like that. Like, okay, small dose. I don't know how long ago this was. Maybe it was a week, maybe it was a day, whatever it was. It could have been $1, doesn't matter. At that rejection point, like, you're probably going to take less time to recover and be like, okay, I'm ready to get back into the playing field and do the rep again. And you
Yeah.
said like, oh, well, when it gets to 50, then I'll get there. But until we practice that, like, we need to set ourselves up to recover. Because what if you started with $1,000 or
Yeah.
$1,000,000, whatever? That might take a year, 2, 5 before you'll practice the act of asking to receive, which is more the important thing. Like, how do I get used to receiving, build the confidence under that, and then dose up accordingly? And I really appreciate that side of the story, because I don't think enough people think about that. Again, I'm thinking expanding out of the training industry, like fitness stuff. Like, you want to get stronger. When you go to the gym, you're actually getting broken down the same way you just said you got rejected, you got your feelings hurt, whatever that, however you want to create the paradigm around it. You're breaking down your muscle, you're breaking down the tissue. Your body is then saying, okay, time to heal, time to recover. We need to be able to handle that capacity. We need to get stronger on top of that to be able to bear that load. And then eventually that, it's just called accommodating resistance. You handle it, you get used to it. And all of a sudden, oh, I guess that $5, $10, $11, then $50, $1,000,000 is not as big a deal. So that was a really cool thing there. I want to make sure that we don't miss this part, because like we've already talked about some, I think, really powerful stuff just to start, because I don't think we can talk enough about being open to receiving and building that capacity, because especially people that have a really big heart want to just give it back out into the world.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we're coming from with this. Is not somebody who's like completely hedonistic, all for me, screw everybody else. That's a different persona. But I do want to make sure like we give this opportunity, like, you know yourself better than I do. So please share with the audience, Kelly, who are you?
Who am I? Oh my gosh.
You're welcome.
I'm a
Receive that,
unicorn.
receive that into your world and take us on a journey.
I know. So I am, oh my gosh. I am, I'm a lover at heart. I just love people. I've been working on myself. I've grown to love myself even more. But from the, paper, resume kind of thing, I am a transformational coach. I'm a motivational speaker. I have a podcast called Perfectly Imperfect. What else do I mean, I just do a whole host of things. I'm writing a book right now. So that's who I am. And what I say is, I help women really shatter their own glass ceilings. And that has been such a theme around my life for the past 2 years. I've been coaching since 2009. And I've just been really like a work in progress, I will say, for myself. I am so committed to my own growth, to my clients. And I always say, I can't take my clients where I haven't been or I haven't experienced to some degree. So that's why I'm so committed, to myself, to my growth, to the unlearning, to healing the traumas that I have. And it's been so rewarding. And I learned something literally about myself every single day. And so, my mission on this earth, and I've felt this for so long. I was in corporate for 18 years, working for some of the top fashion luxury brands. I had a blast. I landed in the hospital actually because of burnout, because I was building my coaching business, speaking business on the side while I was doing that. And I was reporting to like CFOs and CEOs. So I'm like really good at strategy and business and all the things. And, I just had a big pull. I didn't know growing up, like I knew I always wanted to teach people. Like I would set my stuffed animals on the couch, but I didn't want to be a teacher. I just knew I wanted to to really like help people in a different way. And so I had this calling, like, I don't know what age, maybe it was like teenagers, that I'm like, I want to make an impact, in this world. I don't know how it's going to happen. And then in my 20s, I was like, and 30s, and I was like, I want to leave a legacy. When I'm dead in the physical sense, I want to be used up, and really leave a legacy for like the next generations, my generation, all the generations coming forward, and also healing generations from the past. Whenever we do, I was told, whenever we do the trauma, or whenever I do the trauma work, I'm healing 7 generations behind me and 7 generations ahead of me. So that I just really want to be a stand for people to know that they can do, be, and have whatever they want. And really it's be, do, and have. So, so that's me in a nutshell.
Sounds like you're not coincidentally shattering glass ceilings so that others may shatter their own in your own journey, which I really appreciate you sharing that. I think so many people, there's a lot of like those armchair quarterback kind of things, the Monday morning quarterbacks, that kind of bit. You're like, that person should have done this and this and that and that. It's like, but have you been in the arena? And what I think is really valuable, like what I think about is, how can you understand a problem objectively when you're within it? That's half the reason why we have coaches. Like you're
Yeah.
I think of myself in like one of those messages in a bottle. Like I'm there. You can't see the label on the outside of the bottle from within because you're within. And it's the same thing until you get outside of that framework. It's a glass bottle, glass ceiling, whatever you want to call it. You can't look back on it and say, oh, I see all the moving parts within that. So I think it really speaks to your character of saying, I want to help people come with where I went. And I think there's a lot of integrity to say, like, I'm not going to coach you on something I'm not willing to go through myself. And I think that there's so much deep empathy within that as well. To be like, hey, I've been there. Obviously not the exact same thing, but I've been there. I understand some of your fears, your apprehensions, I get that. I'm going to hold that space for you, but I'm also going to challenge you, because that's that is the role of a coach.
Yeah.
I'm not just going to just sit here and dilly dally all day. Let's go. So
Yeah.
where do you want to go from here? So it's really cool that you're doing that. Something I wanted to move back on, and you talked about the feeling that they got that cold. Okay, so that's an upper limit kind of problem. What I think not enough people consider is how physiologically our bodies absorb all that stress, and it comes out. We're talking with a cold, like your immune system can only handle so much.
Yeah.
Stress is stress is stress.
Yeah.
People don't want to look at it that way because, like, but it's in a germ. It's like it's such like in a cookie cutter. It's got to be that way. When you see other people going through that, what do you tend to do? Because I know that's something that's a problem for people. People feel that thing coming on, and they'll just like,
Yeah.
just like completely crash. What do you see for that? Because I think that's a really important thing for people to hone in on.
Yeah. So all stress is not bad, right? So there's like the positive stress, like there's some stress is good, right? So there's different, like there's positive, there's toxic, there's all different types. So and some things will take you out. I mean, I landed in the hospital from literally, my addiction. I've had so many addictions. One of my addiction at that point was workaholism, where I was working all the time when I was in corporate. And that led me to like adrenal fatigue, burnout, like 2 months in bed, couldn't work at all. So I think with stress, and also like I'll be completely vulnerable right now, is like, so the past 2 years I've been working on my trauma as well. And right now I'm also in a very deep healing of my trauma. So it's like I am holding a lot, and I am also getting support. Like I have 2 coaches, I'm in a container. So it's like I'm very much aware, because at that point too, some people, what they'll do when they have all this stress, they'll be like, no, I can handle it, I'll internalize it. They act like Wonder Woman, Superman. Like they'll say, I don't need any. And so that was me for years, where I wouldn't ask for help. I wouldn't seek out a therapist. I was like, no, I'm good, I got this, because that was my story growing up. I was the one to take care of everyone else. And it served me. It got me climbing up corporate ladders. It really served me, up until a point where then it didn't really serve me anymore to that capacity. So I think with stress and with this like upper limit problem and all of that, everything is serving us, and like everything is speaking, right? So right now it's like I know I'm in this kind of like I'm literally shattering my own glass ceilings, right, of my capacity to receive. I'm also working on my trauma, healing that at such like deeper levels than ever before. So, and it's like, well, how do I then take care of myself? Like this whole weekend I really took care of myself. Like I slept, I relaxed, it was so I know the ins and outs of it. And it's like, can I just welcome whatever's coming at me and to me? But we also get to, for example, I was coaching someone the other day around, she had so much resentment and anger, and she was suppressing it for years and years and years. And that's what I was doing actually also at a certain time in my life. And so when we suppress anything that wants to come out, we get to get it out of our bodies. Like in that moment, or say you're going into a meeting and something really triggered you, you're really angry. Yeah, well, of course you can't get it out right there before the meeting, but it's setting a date for yourself to then process those emotions, because the emotions are stuck in your body if you're not processing them. And so, like this cold, for example, I really think that I wasn't listening also to my body there was like 3 times where I really wasn't listening, and I was like, oh, but I'm getting support and I'm good. But like, there was still that like, Kelly, I don't know. Like I still wasn't really listening to my intuition. And also what I like to say too is some of this is also related to me releasing some of the trauma that I'm healing as well. So it's like getting it out. So there's all different ways, right, that kind of stress affects us. But I think the main thing I want to say is really being like listening to your intuition and asking for help when you need it. And then also like if there's even a little niggling or nagging, like that you need help or you need rest or you need whatever, listen to it, right? Because yeah, do I have a cold right now? Yeah, but like 10 years ago or 7 years ago, I probably would have been like in the hospital, get like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's listening to your body, but then also knowing that um, sometimes I know people that have a cold just because they're working through the trauma stuff, right? So it's getting out, but it's also listening and taking care of your body, you
Mhm.
know? So I think stress is good, but then also stress is just also like a sign, you
Mhm.
know, for you to really listen. And you know, you'll see those people that this used to be me too. If you're at a stoplight and you know, or you know, someone's like blowing the your horn or like just getting really angry in traffic or something, and then people just lose it. You ever notice people just lose? Like, you ever see people just lose it? And it's because that's like anger or suppressed feelings that have been not processed. So that occurs a lot in society because people aren't taking the time to process, to listen, to they're just suppressing. And listen, I still do it. I still mindlessly scroll on social media. You know, I still suppress, like, I am not perfect, right? By any means. And I will do certain suppress, but then now I'm aware of it. I'm like, Kelly, okay, you're mindlessly scrolling, get off. But some people will do that as a technique to not feel the feelings or not listen to the signs. So I would just say, you know, not all stress is bad, but also be aware of what you're doing. And then if you need to go punch a pillow or go into a rage room or cry your eyes out 4 times a day, um, do it, you know. And everyone's like, well, what if I'm like really depressed? I mean, you'll know, right? I'm not a doctor, I'm not a, but it's my whole point here is not to suppress the emotions or the feelings, because listen, we're all coming out of like a lot of post-traumatic stress for the past 2 years that we've been living in, and it's affecting people in all different ways, just society.
Let me pull a couple pieces out there that really stuck
Yeah.
out to me. One was threshold. Number one,
Mhm.
there is a threshold, and the example at the stoplight. I was laughing because it was maybe a week ago. I watched some dude literally have a temper tantrum in his truck, zipping off. I'm like, dude, you're about to cause an accident, and I already you can tell like somebody already rained on your parade today. And my first thought to my mind was, great, you're lashing out right now, but you're also behind the wheel of a couple thousand-pound vehicle, i.e., a couple thousand-pound weapon, if
Yeah.
used in a certain way. What, God forbid, if you hit a car and killed a kid or another family or
Yeah.
whatever? I think about that stuff literally all the time. So talking about thresholds of stress, stress is stress is stress. But then what I loved and you brought in there is that, okay, it took this weekend. And what I heard there was also knowing where and how to create space. So that person venting behind the wheel, they actually are venting. They're trying to hit that release valve, but they might have chosen the time and place that actually increases their risk of like catastrophic damage.
Right.
As where you said, like, hey, if you know how to pick up on those signs and symptoms earlier, you'll know where and how to deploy that stress and vent it out and create that space and create more flow state again and ease up some of that friction, i.e., breathe again, crazy
Yeah.
thought like that, in a more productive fashion where you're down regulating and hedging your risk against more catastrophic outcomes, because that's just the way this thing is. So I love that. And I think that there's something else in about like some stress is good, some stress is bad, but it's also contextual. It's up to you to decide, is it good or is it bad? Like, who am I to say? Exercise could be good stress and bad stress if you do too much of it or too little of it, or just do the same thing. So I thought that was really cool how you walked through those different pieces in your own life. And that's it's not easy. And I think that there's something that it culminated in to me was that you're accepting that it's going to happen again. You're going to be more aware of the symptoms and you're going to get out farther ahead of it. And I would hope that people start realizing that it's not about ever getting rid of stress, because like you said, it's not good or bad. It could be both. It's more knowing when and how to use it, and knowing when and how to engage it, and knowing when and how to downregulate, upregulate, and how to get farther ahead. There's something super, super powerful in that. And I would even go so far as to say that a sign of success is, we'll say that some people it comes out physically, or for me, it's always like it always comes out in like an argument with my wife where I'll just shut down and I'm like, I'm not going to tell you what I'm feeling right now because I don't think I feel safe enough to share.
Yeah.
That's like classic Caleb. By the by, which ironically, I don't never shut my mouth when I've stopped talking and I'm not willing to talk. We know we've hit a threshold. It's a powder keg. There's a bomb inside of my brain, and I'm like, we're gonna lose it, I'm gonna cry, and we're gonna have a meltdown. You know, figuratively speaking, all those things, of course. But I would, in a few conversations I've had not only with my wife but other people and other coaching clients, it's now how far is the gap between those periods, and you can only really like maybe it was a week every day and now it's a week, then if it's 3 months, and then the other piece is when it does come up, what's like at what facility can you get through that, what speed and what graciousness can you go through those moments. My wife is always going to be pissed because I'm not as neat and tidy as she is. It is what it is. There's going to be a threshold when we've taken too much in our life. We just didn't see that far into the future. It is what it is. Accepting that and then seeing success as maybe in some of those different paradigms, as opposed to like, it never happened again. And I never have that problem. And I don't feel bad. Like, I think there's something in that. So I took that on a bit of a rant at the end there, but I'm just, you come into Naked Sunday bringing vulnerability, and God, I love it. So like you took it full bore. You took it full bore. We haven't like stripped down on this thing like physically, but like vulnerability and like openness and honesty, I think is, oh yeah. I don't even know.
Well, I like what you said, like the threshold, because it's kind of like not how quickly you can be back to center or self-regulation, because I mean that's what it is, right? We there's a lot of times like, you know, listen, some people say everything's neutral in the world. Everything's neutral. You know, whatever triggers you is due to your whatever upbringing or things that, you know, and it's kind of true. It's like, well, everything's neutral. Okay, well, something that gets you angry might get someone else be like, oh yeah, that wasn't right. So it's our responsibility to be like, okay, how do I self-regulate? Right? Like your nervous system, which could be breathing. It could be putting your like hand over your heart and your belly, like to let your body know that you're safe. And I love that you bring the safety part of it, because it's like, honestly, the safety, the approval, the control, like we're all doing things or acting out because of something is feeling threatened, or we're not feeling understood or heard, or we're not in control. Like there's those core things that people, you know, are all, and it's not good or bad. Like it's just an experience. And it's like, okay, how quickly or how can we come back or lessen the threshold, where kind of going back to that, the receiving and the muscle and all that. It's like, okay, well, how can that, you know, how can we lessen the effect? So yeah, I just like how you said, like bringing it back to, okay, what's going to make me feel safe in this moment? Or even like the person, right? Like behind the car or whatever behind, it's like, okay, well, how can that person regulate? Like, could he have went to a rage room, you know, and process some of his past traumas, or I don't know, maybe he's going through, and we also don't know what other people are experiencing either. So it's like, yeah, I mean, a lot of people are suffering right now. And that's okay. We all go through suffering. And I will bring up, you know, this is like, even with my romantic partnerships, you know, I was in a 7-year relationship on and off and on and off. And, you know, I went through a heartbreak last year, and it was probably the toughest time, but it's like, oh, wow, I'm so thankful for that 7-year relationship and what it taught me, because I was literally brought through the ringer, and it expanded my capacity to be like, oh, okay, like I know how, quote unquote, and you know, good and bad are relative, like you said, subjective. I was so like, brought through the ringer. It was such a quote unquote bad time, but it was such a blessing too, that really helped me also through the heartbreak that I went last year. So I think everything also builds upon each other. And then we get to, all of our experiences are going to help us. Like each day we're getting better and better, you know? So yeah, I don't know why I just went off on that tangent, but
no, I actually really love what you brought to the table there. It's funny because I just wrote a whole bit about it, and I've been having this conversation about exes recently, and I stand on this premise firmly. Love your exes, all of them.
Yeah.
Every last one of them. I'll share with you why. And it's so much so, and I've told my wife about this. So anybody who's worried, like, oh, Caleb's like having weird thoughts. It's like I've had a couple of like a recurring dream about one ex in particular of late. And the recurring dream is about like forgiveness. And it was like, oh, I was valuing this during my life and I was putting undue pressures in that relationship. I was causing friction just as much as I was resentful during it. I was also like, it goes both ways. Like, I'm sure she was very resentful of things I did. And it was just merely a reflection of how I was viewing the world. And much to what you were saying, that person taught you a lot about yourself.
Yeah.
And I'd be curious to hear your thought on this, but like what I'm coming around to is the reason why I think there's resentment ever, is that deep down, when it ends, quote unquote, it fails, it didn't live up to expectations, we feel like we wasted our time on that person. I chose you to share that period of my life. It didn't work out the way I thought it was, so that must have been a waste. As opposed to be like, that was an experiment and me learning more about myself. It happened to be you. And if I'd be like, but it could have been somebody else, it's like, yeah, it could have been, but it was them. And to look back on your life with resentment, as we're talking about traumas were the meaning we assign to it. So maybe like if we shift, how do you even get to the point? Like maybe we shift the word, like this is my ex to, that was my ex blank title, whatever that ex business partner, ex girlfriend, ex boyfriend, ex husband, wife, to current teacher. It's now like, wow, you're giving me a gift going forward and in the present. I can only speak from where I'm standing right now. Like I know as I've adopted that across the board, I don't think I haven't, like outwardly speaking from my vantage point, I have zero enemies. Whether they think about me differently than that is, it's up to them. But like, and I've definitely ruffled some feathers, and anybody who's listening here who's never like had a chance to have like us to hash it out and like make peace, like the door's open. Like I'd love to chat, but like I can only speak from where I'm standing. I walk around my life so unencumbered. I feel like you talked about it before, like compiling stuff. Like all I visualize, I had a friend this morning, he was talking about like, I left this job and I just lost 25 pounds. I was like, was it COVID weight? He's like, no, it was the job weight. It's like, people don't think about how it's manifesting itself physically on your body. It's a perfect log. I know I went on a rant there and I wanted your opinion somewhere. And I like any feedback on the rant that just came out of my head.
Yeah, no. And I love that. And I think it's what I loved what you said is like, this is your current teacher or your exes or your past, whatever, past jobs, or like that was the current teacher for what you needed at that point. And like, and it's the experiment. Like, I love that. Like, can we just play and can we just like say, okay, that was an experiment or this is an experiment, or, and I love that because it's like every single person that is brought into your life is like either you learn from that person, you need to learn something, they need to learn something, both need to learn something, or that situation taught you something. So it's like, yeah, I look back and sometimes, listen, some of you might be listening right now and be like, I am in a freaking ish storm, and it's like, that's what I
You
feel
could
like
swear. You could swear, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
It's Naked Sunday, damn it.
Yeah, shitstorm. That's where I was last year. And I was like, I am in a shitstorm. Like this, and this is not my first shitstorm. This is not the first rodeo here. And it's like, what is this teaching me? And at some points, I was like literally down on my knees and like, I don't know and I don't care, but this does not feel good. And so sometimes we get to have those, tantrums and be like, yeah. And coming out of it's like, oh, okay. Like, this is what it taught me. Oh, okay. Maybe I needed to love myself deeper. I needed to, like, oh my gosh. So we always see it kind of, sometimes we see it when we're in it, but it is, can we be forgiving, and grateful for everything that has, and even the darkest moments, quote unquote, we say darkest moments, have brought you something, and being like, kind of like, what is this teaching me? Or what did this teach me? Finding the opportunity and everything. And I know it's so cliche, but I had a coach tell me once, like, even prisoners in a prison have an opportunity and a lesson to learn, and they have, like, they can decide if they want to eat today or not. They can decide. So even when you think you don't have choice, or you can't forgive, or you really, and hey, just be accepting of where you're at. Like, I'm not saying don't. And there is always an opportunity for forgiveness and for lessons and for all of that. But also give yourself grace. Like, not every moment you have to live in, like, oh, rose colored glasses either. We get to feel all the emotions that are coming up.
Well, I'd go so far as to say, if we don't allow ourselves to feel all the emotions,
Yeah.
number one, I would go so far as to say that's inhumane, because
Yep.
we were given this, however you choose to look at it, blessing of feelings. We're not robots. We are
Yeah.
this other thing. Whether we understand it or ever will fully understand it I don't think that even matters. But I even think it's responsible to allow yourself to feel it. And I would say allow yourself to feel it early and often. I cry all the time. My wife laughs at me all the time because I'll just sit alone in a room and just start thinking about shit.
Yeah.
And like, whether it's a movie that moves me and I attach it to, like, wow, like I watched Coda the other day. I've never cried so hard in my life on a movie. And I'm going to give away a little something. So spoiler, did you ever see it?
No.
I'm going to do this. You'll forget it. Just wash it out of your mind, but just take the meat.
Right.
There's a moment where I'm just trying to find the words in a way that I don't spoil this moment, because it was powerful to me. It was a moment where you got to step into the lens of what it felt like to be the parents. Though the family of this woman, so the family is deaf, and there's this one girl who can sing. Yeah. Premise of the movie.
Yeah.
And I was like, I started just tears running down my face. Like, oh, now I don't know this, but like, where else in my life have I felt like an outsider, and I'm having to use a different lens than what everybody else surrounding me uses to connect. And they had to look for these other signs and symptoms to be like, is this moving? Is this? And I was like, imagine a parent who has a disabled child in some way, shape, or form. Imagine, name your thing. And I'm just like, moved to tears.
Yeah.
Now, the reason why I'm bringing this to the table, especially I'll use men, but like I would even say women to the same extent. Like we're all kind of on a spectrum of where we're at with all of it. It's like men in this day and age are like, don't cry, don't feel. I'm like,
Yeah.
if you don't know how, like, what that feeling feels like under neutral circumstances, while I'm sitting on my couch, quote unquote, rotting my brain on a Saturday, where there's no like I've down regulated any risk of like negative outcome. Now think about, like, if I'm confronted with that feeling somewhere else in life, but I need to keep it together and everything else, I then know how to manage that because I can feel it. And I think of like a kid, I think of a child, the first time they feel rage or anger or whatever it is, like they lose their mind for 5 minutes. And then all of a sudden, like, here's a piece of candy. Oh, cool. I'm back to it. Like, they've never experienced that before. They've never had anybody walk through it with them. And most people just like say, shut that shit down. Don't feel this. Don't cry. Don't, whatever the thing is, as opposed to, so that's the thing going on. Cool. Like, what happened? And like normalizing how to deal with it. Like, then there's like, it's like strength training. Like, day one, you don't slap 300 pounds on somebody's back and say, figure out how to squat this. You say, here's an air squat. Like, can you do that to a chair? And like, maybe tomorrow we'll do without the chair. Like, I don't know. Let's start there.
Yeah.
I went on a long rant there and I don't even know where it started. But I think that comes around like the feeling of stuff, like allowing people permission to do that. I am looking at the clock right now because I know you have a call in a few minutes. So I do want to be respectful of your time. And I apologize for just like soaking up all the airtime in there for like 2 minutes. There's another thought in there I wanted to go with, but like, what advice do you have for anybody who's listening right now? Because I know, like you talked about, you came from this corporate environment to this entrepreneurial, like that in and of itself is incredibly brave.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for somebody, as I know you work with women or anybody, but like, let's say specifically women, and a woman who's like feeling like they're at their ceiling and they're like, I feel boxed in. What advice would you have for somebody there?
Yeah. Go do something that's like totally crazy.
Well, how crazy?
Listen, it's all subjective.
Yes.
So if you want to go bungee jumping, like go, like really skydiving, whatever it is. but seriously, like it's what is it like that you need? Because it's going to be different for everyone, right? So for me, like the question when I was leaving corporate, because I could have left like way sooner than I did. It was like I asked this question. I don't know why it hit me differently in this time, but I was like, if I keep doing the same thing I'm doing today, where am I going to be a year from now?
Mhm.
And one day I was like, I am definitely not going to, I will be here. And am I okay with that? No, I'm absolutely not okay with that. So something needs to change. Something needs to shift. And so I knew something needed to shift. And even like today, like you could have that question today. It's like, okay, what needs to shift? Is it how I'm feeling? Do I need to go process my feelings? Do I need to take a different action? Do I need to think a different thought? Because I know for me, I would always get stuck in like these negative loop patterns, and sometimes I'm better at it now where I'll get myself out of it. I'll self-coach myself in those moments where, but it's like, yeah, what do you need now? That because if you're at a ceiling and you're not happy or you're not satisfied, it's like what gets to change? And it can be anything from your thinking to your feeling to you actually being they call it experiential therapy, like me going and doing the receiving thing with the money tree, right? Like maybe it's something like that, maybe it's like, I don't know, for the women that are looking for a partner, right? It's like, okay, like how about you go somewhere and flirt with some men or some women, whatever your choice is, like it doesn't matter, go flirt with whoever, right? And so it's like, what would you do outside of the norm? And because what you're doing right now, if you keep doing the same thing, like there's that quote, nothing changes if nothing changes. So it's like, what gets to change, what gets to shift, what gets to, and it could be anything. It could be anything.
I might have to change the title of that. There's a couple things in there. I was like, those are some sick lines. I'm like, gotta go with that. Kelly, I can literally talk with you for hours. And I know, again, you got
Same.
stuff coming up right now. But if there's somebody right now, there's a woman who's listening and they're like, okay, this girl's speaking my language. I dig her courage. I dig her vulnerability. I want to break through my own glass ceilings. I want to really pursue this life that really inspires me and I love and makes me super happy. What's the best way for somebody to connect with you?
Yeah. So just get into my world. My website is the best place, kellylynnadams.com. I'm all over social media. So yeah, just get on my newsletter. I think that's probably the best way. And
You're
check me
amazing.
out. So
You're amazing. Guys, I am going to put Kelly's contact, connection, whatever stuff in the show notes. So make sure you go check that out. I can't say enough good things about you. Like, again, like I don't know why we're friends now, but I believe like we're here to help each other in this world. But I'm so deeply grateful. I don't even remember who connected us. That's where it's at this point. I'm like, I
yeah,
feel like I've kind of known you forever. It's like I really don't know how this came together, but I couldn't ask for a better new friend in my life than a better new old friend. Maybe
yeah.
that's how that goes. I don't know.
I'm
But
so thankful for you and this podcast and just everything that you're creating in this world. You're super powerful. So it has been an honor just to be here and be in your space and your vortex. So thank you.
now you got me blushing, and it's
Yeah.
not just the fake and bake. Okay, so like if that's all the feels right here in my heart. Kelly, you're phenomenal. Anything else you want to leave the guests with, the listeners with, any parting words?
I would just say, whatever's in your head and on your heart, it's there for a reason. So like don't just listen to it and take action, aligned action. That's it.
You're amazing. Well, I'm looking forward to our next conversation. Everybody go check out her information in the show notes. Go get in touch with her. Go get into her ecosystem of life. Be inspired, be motivated, all those great things. And yeah, just keep being awesome. So that's all we got for today, everybody. Thank you for listening. And until next time, I remind you to love everybody.